Chapter 466. In her small apartment, Luna had already bathed and changed her younger siblings into fresh clothes. She could not help but admire the financial capabilities of wealthy people. Most people needed to go through a process when buying a house, but Olivia just provided her ID to immediately get a fully furnished home. What impressed her even more was that Olivia had genuinely thanked Nash. Now, she was curious about who this Nash was. "Luna, are you still going to school?" Olivia asked as she came over after being on a call. Luna shook her head. "Dad hadn't been home for the longest time, so I took a few days off to take care of my younger siblings." She then thought about how he had turned himself in and lowered her head, crying silently. Filled with compassion, Olivia ruffled Luna's hair. "Please don't blame me for it. Your dad needs to be taught a lesson. If he keeps going on like this, he'll run into trouble sooner or later. It's not too late for him to undergo rehabilitation in prison." Luna quickly replied, "I don't blame you for what you did. In fact, I'm grateful." Olivia smiled and asked, "Have you ever been in a relationship?" Luna blushed and shook her head. "I just turned 18. I won't date until I finish college." Olivia smiled slyly. "That's great. If Jason ever dares bully you, just tell me. I'll help avenge you." Luna had the makings of a beautiful woman and would be a good match for the Lee family. "Olivia, I actually get what you mean. If Jason changes for the better and improves his grades, I can consider dating him after I graduate from college. Even though many women dream of marrying into the Lee family, I don't want my future husband to be an uneducated baddie." Luna kept her head down, unable to look at Olivia. The smile on Olivia's face only widened when she heard what Luna said. "There aren't many girls who are treasures like you." Luna's words were the truth. Olivia was also envious of Luna. If it were not for the arranged marriage said by her grandfather, she probably wouldn't have married Theo. It was not that Theo was not outstanding. She just did not want to be constantly limited by him. She wanted to prove that she was just as good as a man, but every time she faced any setback, Theo would secretly help her overcome it. How could she sharpen herself in the business world like this? At Royal Bay Villa, Nash was finally able to enjoy a soothing hot shower. Now, all he needed was a good night's sleep. He considered doing something before going to bed to make things even better. The idea barely crossed his mind before he dismissed it. It had happened 3 times already, and he even began to suspect if fate was deliberately toying with him. Outside, Hira was dressed in her pajamas and sitting on the bed while talking to Scotty on the phone. "It really seems like a coincidence. Something just happens every time you're about to get intimate with Nash. On second thought, could it be one of Nash's enemies?" Scotty sounded like she was a little amused at Hira's situation. She could easily imagine the expression on Nash's face at that moment. "Whether it's his enemy or mine, he's my man. We'll face whatever adversity together," Hira said, sounding dissatisfied. "So, please don't make such remarks in the future, Scotty." All right, my bad. I'm sorry, okay." Scotty quickly apologized when she sensed Hira's irritation. "That's more like it. I need to rest. I haven't slept in over 20 hours, and I'm practically dead on my feet." After a brief exchange with Hira, Scotty hung up. She was about to lie down and sleep when Nash called from the bathroom. "Hira, I forgot to grab my underwear. Can you help me get it?" Hira lay on the bed, eyes closed. She gave a weary response. "You can get it yourself. I'm really tired. I don't want to move." Nash, somewhat reluctantly, had to step out of the bathroom wearing nothing. At that moment, the phone placed on the bedside table began to rattle. Nash walked to the bedside table to answer the call. Chapter 467. Hira heard footsteps and instinctively opened her eyes. Her eyes widened the next second as her entire face flushed. She covered her eyes and screamed, "Ah, pervert!" Nash really came out nude. Did he not know how to grab a towel? "I asked you to get it for me, but you didn't want to." Nash smiled playfully before glancing at the incoming call display. He was surprised to see that it was from Fabian. "Hello, Fabian. Nash greeted warmly. There was a moment of silence from the other end, with only some little cheers from the Fox echoing in the back. Fabian took a deep breath and replied, "The Jonesville branch's performance is currently at the bottom. From what Frankie told me, there are too many troublemakers there. If you have the time, please go deal with it. The branch can only continue to operate if their performance improves." Was this man ordering him around? He was the president of Universal Foundation. Nash wanted to roll his eyes but still responded with a smile. "All right, I'll report there tomorrow." His grandfather had founded Universal Group. After all, the company had set up numerous subsidiaries across Draconia with the aim of boosting the economy of multiple regions. It also presented the opportunity for Nash to deal with those who had wronged Hira. "You need to be mindful of your approach. There are quite a few people in the Jonesville branch who are from the 10 families, Fabian reminded him before ending the call. Nash placed his phone on the bedside table and sat down on the bed. You need to put on some pants," Hira said, still covering her face. The blush had now reached down to her neck. She had wanted to consummate her relationship with Nash the night before, but it had been night then and she had planned for Nash to turn off the lights. However, it was now daytime, and Nash was standing right there without a stitch of clothing. She felt incredibly embarrassed, her blush intensifying. Nash lifted the blanket and crawled under it, embracing Hira. He smiled softly and said, "How about we pick up where we left off last night?" "I'm really not in the mood right now," Hira replied. "With everything happening at the company, I haven't had a moment's rest since yesterday morning. I'm tired and sleepy now." Nash let go of her, seeing as Hira was pouting as she spoke. "All right, I can spare you for today," Nash said, looking at Hira's adorable yet pitiful expression. He could not help but smile. Hira felt the warmth radiating from him and instinctively moved back. Nash lay flat on the bed and said, "Get some rest. I haven't had a good night's sleep in a long time either." Hira clutched a blanket. She did not even dare to hug Nash to sleep, afraid that the naked man might suddenly lose control. Hira was curious about Nash's conversation over the phone earlier and could not help but ask, "By the way, who called you just now? Where do you need to report?" "I found a job at Universal Group. The HR department asked me to start work tomorrow." "Found a job? Why do you still need a job? Besides, you're already working as a security manager in my company." "Oh, I get it. You just don't want to work with me." Hira left some words and said, Nash must have gotten the job at Universal Group with Melody's help. He would likely be commuting to work with Melody in the future. Even though she trusted Nash, she could not help but feel a bit jealous. Chapter 468. Don't overthink it. I need to fill my time with meaningful things, and being the security manager in your company is just too idle of a job. Then can't you just stay at the company and... Nash covered Hira's mouth before she could finish her sentence. Not knowing where to rest her hands, Hira ended up pressing them against Nash's chest. Nash smiled wickedly. "Say another word and I'll have my way with you right now." "Hey, Emph, I won't talk to you anymore." Hira turned away from Nash, but his hot body pressed against her back the next second. His strong and powerful hands reached around her from behind. His warm, masculine breath sprayed over her ear as he whispered, "Wifey, it's time to sleep. No more overthinking." His deep and magnetic voice sent shivers down Hira's spine, making her feel weak all over. As Nash's hands moved upward, she quickly pressed down on them and said, "All right. I'm not angry anymore. Let's go to sleep." With a slight smile on his lips, Nash closed his eyes slowly. In the evening, Finn Bradley and the lot of them drove into Jonesville in a convoy. After nearly half a month of hard work, they were finally going home. They had relieved smiles on their faces. "Grandpa, how much did we make this time?" Nico asked cheerfully. Bradley had a cigarette in his hand. He flicked the ash out of the car window and said with a laugh, "About 4 billion or so." "For 4 billion? Nico swallowed hard. "You've been tomb raiding all your life and only managed to accumulate 10 billion. Yet, we've made 4 billion this time." Bradley smiled and replied, "In the past, 80% of our profits were taken by the Young family, and the remaining 20% were then divided among the 100 or so members of the Tomb Whisperer lineage. So, the amount we could actually get was quite limited. If it wasn't for me being a senior member of the Tomb Whisperer lineage, I wouldn't have even accumulated 10 billion. 80. Nash's clan was really taking too much. That's all hard-earned money from your life and death missions, Nico grumbled. Bradley slapped Nico on the head. You little rabbit. What do you know? Grandpa, you're hitting my head again. Nico covered his head and looked at his grandfather aggrievedly. I'm only speaking the truth. You guys were out there risking your lives while they were just sitting there enjoying the benefits and taking the lion's share. Bradley raised his hand again. Seeing that he was about to get slapped again, Nico hurriedly said, I'll be quiet. Please don't hit me. Bradley withdrew his hand and then explained seriously. You can think of the Tomb Whisperer lineage as a business in the past. We were both employees and shareholders. Those in the management level had more shares, while the others had fewer. The earnings from each mission resulted in different levels of dividends. We gave 80% of our profits to the Tomb Whisperer lineage because it's a rule when one enters the Tomb Whisperer lineage to not forget those who have helped you. Our unique skills all come from the Tomb Whisperer lineage, so it's only fair for them to get a larger share. Besides, the leader also gave us an additional year-end bonus every year. That bonus itself is more money than an ordinary person can earn in their entire life. Then, Bradley cautioned profoundly, you need to learn to be content. Greed will only bring you disasters. Nico nodded despite not fully understanding what Bradley meant. Like the Young family? The Young family had been too greedy, which ultimately led to the destruction of their clan. This time, Bradley delivered a resounding slap to Nico's face, his anger akin to thunder. The Young family is powerful enough. They fear no enemy. If not for those traitors, they would have shown for 1,000 years. Where do you think our family would be if not for them? You think you can ridicule them? The slap was so loud that it nearly caused Derek, who was driving, to lose his grip on the steering wheel. Mr. Bradley, please calm down. It was apparent that Bradley was actually pissed. Chapter 469. No matter how one looked at it, he and Nico grew up together. Now was the time for him to step in and advise the old man. This was the first time Nico had been slapped by his grandfather, and he realized then that he had gone too far with his joke. None of them would have made it out of the King of Medicine's tomb without Nash. Nash was the head of the Tomb Whisperer lineage, equivalent to their boss, while they were just employees. Despite that, he had fought the undead Corpse King to protect them. Yet, Nico had ridiculed him for his lost family. With these thoughts in mind, Nico lowered his head and apologized. Grandpa, I was wrong. Bradley slowly exhaled. Nico and Derek thought he was calming down, but little did they know that he was still shaken. He had almost used his inner energy just now. If he had not pulled back in time, Nico would have suffered at least a minor concussion. You must remember this. Even the 10 families get nervous when they hear the mention of the Young family. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Nico nodded hastily. Yes, I'll remember that. Mr. Bradley, it's getting dark soon. How about treating us to a good meal? Derek asked with a grin. They did not know that Bradley was wealthy back then. Now that they were aware that he was a billionaire, there was no reason for them not to enjoy some good food. Let's go to the Dynasty Grand Hotel. I have a supplier waiting for me there. Shortly after, 3 cars arrived at the Dynasty Grand Hotel. Due to the long journey, the cars were covered in a thick layer of dust. The parking lot attendant immediately frowned when he saw them. Just as he was about to stop them, however, Nico took out a stack of cash from his bag and handed it over. The attendant's face lit up with a smile. There happened to be 3 parking spots over there. You can park your cars there. Bradley glanced around and quickly spotted a young man in a white coat in the middle of the parking lot. The young man also noticed Bradley. Nico handed the attendant $1,000. You can return to your post now. We'll park the cars ourselves. His grandfather had given him $2,000 and told him to send the attendant away with the money. He felt a bit reluctant to part with $2,000 and so gave only $1,000 to him. Thank you, sir. May you have a blessed day. The parking attendant gratefully thanked him. In over 3 years of work, the largest tip he had ever received was only $200. Today, he instantly received $1,000. These gentlemen were truly keeping their wealth under wraps. He happily entered the security booth. At the same time, Finn and his companions parked their cars. Finn then called Melody and Nash to invite them for dinner. Both of them readily agreed after hearing that they had arrived at Jonesville. A young man in a red suit quickly approached Bradley and greeted him with a friendly smile. "You must be Mr. Bradley, right?" Bradley nodded with a smile. "Indeed, I am. I didn't expect old Hamilt's grandson to have grown so much." "I suppose you're his descendant?" the man Yadris asked with a smile as he looked at Nico. Nico reached out with his dirty hand and introduced himself. "I'm my grandfather's grandson, Nico." Bradley frowned slightly. He was about to speak up, but Yadris extended his fair hand to shake Nico's dirty one. He said in a very gentlemanly manner, "I'm Yadris Hamilt. I'm a few years older than you, but you can just call me Yadris in the future." Chapter 270. The Hamilt family of Jonesville was the city's largest antique dealer with family assets exceeding $100 billion. Yadris had learned about antiques from his grandfather since he was a kid. He had traveled around the world in the past 20 and more years, honing his extraordinary appraisal skills. He had been in the business for 6 years and had never made a mistake. However, the main source of the Hamilt family's wealth was not just from discovering and trading antiques. They also profited substantially from the treasures brought by tomb-raiding families. These treasures came in large quantities and at reasonable prices. The name Professor Bradley was at the front of their list of clients. The man was about to retire soon, and his descendants were expected to inherit the business. Therefore, building a good relationship with Bradley's family was crucial. Nico grinned. "Sure thing, Yadris. Let's be good friends from now on." His grandfather had just told him about Yadris' background. He was the eldest son of a second-tier family in Jonesville and was a rising star in the world of antiques. In just 6 years, he had earned nearly $1.5 billion using his skill to find valuable antiques. He felt happy to be friends with such a young and promising person. Seeing Yadris' polished manners and upbringing, Bradley could not help but consider giving Nico another beating. However, he knew that it was not Nico's fault. Yadris had grown up in a big family with interactions with knowledgeable and cultured people. This had significantly contributed to his exceptional demeanor. On the other hand, Bradley had spent most of his life as a tomb raider and had hidden away with his family. The knowledge he passed down to his descendants was mostly about evading the public's attention and digging through tombs discreetly. "I've reserved a private room for us at the Dynasty Grand Hotel. How about having dinner together?" Yadris smiled and looked at the group's bulging backpacks as they stood behind Bradley. Though he appeared calm on the surface, he was extremely excited on the inside. His grandfather's largest deal was worth $2 billion, which he managed to double after selling. His father once made a significant purchase of $500 million, gaining substantial profits through a few lucky finds. This $4 billion deal would be his chance to make a name for himself. "Haha, didn't your grandfather tell you about our rules?" Bradley said with a half smile. Yadris then remembered that Bradley was from the Tomb Whisperer lineage, which had rules against dining and drinking with buyers. "Sorry, I was being presumptuous." Yadris quickly apologized. Bradley chuckled. "Let's discuss this in your car." Yadris gestured to them to follow. At that moment, a security guard approached them and stopped them. "Hold on." Even though they had bribed him, their secretive and furtive behavior aroused his suspicions. $1,000 was not enough for him to lose his comfortable job. Everyone paused and looked at the guard. Even Finn felt a bit anxious at that moment. Yadris remained calm and asked, "Do you know who I am?" The guard snorted. "Who? Let's hear it." "Call your manager and ask them who Yadris Hamilt is," Yadris replied. With that, he led the group into his van. His 2 bodyguards closed the car door and stood outside with their hands behind their backs. The security guard froze on the spot. After hesitating for a moment, he took out his phone and dialed the manager's number. "Yadris Hamilt. He's the majority shareholder of the Dynasty Grand Hotel. Didn't your leader tell you this?"